Ultra-processed foods pose a serious and multifaceted threat to cardiovascular health, with mounting evidence linking their regular consumption to a significantly increased risk of heart disease, stroke, and related complications. These foods are typically rich in trans fats, excessive sodium, refined sugars, and low-quality carbohydrates, components that disrupt the body's vascular system in multiple damaging ways. Over time, the cumulative effect of these ingredients can undermine cardiovascular integrity, trigger chronic inflammation, and accelerate atherosclerosis, the buildup of plaque in the arteries that often leads to heart attacks and strokes. Trans fats, once common in margarine, baked goods, and many fried or shelf-stable products, have been strongly associated with elevated levels of low-density lipoprotein, LDL or bad, cholesterol, and decreased high-density lipoprotein, HDL or good, cholesterol. Though some countries have regulated or banned trans fats, they remain present in certain ultra-processed foods, either through partially hydrogenated oils or as unintended byproducts of industrial fat processing. Even in small quantities, trans fats are especially harmful, contributing to arterial inflammation and increasing the risk of sudden cardiac events. For people regularly consuming ultra-processed foods, exposure to these dangerous fats can be consistent and cumulative, exacerbating cardiovascular strain over years or decades. Excess sodium is another hallmark of ultra-processed foods and a silent contributor to heart disease. It's not uncommon for a single serving of frozen pizza, canned soup, or processed meat to contain more than half the daily recommended sodium intake. High sodium levels lead to water retention and increased blood volume, which in turn elevates blood pressure. Chronic hypertension, high blood pressure, is a primary driver of heart failure, coronary artery disease, and strokes. Unlike salt added during home cooking, sodium in ultra-processed foods is often hidden in preservatives, flavor enhancers, and chemical stabilizers, making it difficult for consumers to monitor their intake. This deceptive sodium content turns even seemingly harmless foods into long-term cardiovascular hazards. The added sugars found abundantly in ultra-processed foods, especially in sweetened beverages, breakfast cereals, flavored yogurts, and condiments, further complicate cardiovascular health. Diets high in added sugars have been shown to increase triglyceride levels, promote liver fat accumulation, and elevate the risk of insulin resistance, all of which are known contributors to heart disease. Excess sugar not only increases caloric intake, but also promotes systemic inflammation, a condition that weakens blood vessels and destabilizes arterial plaque. Over time, this makes arteries more prone to rupture or blockage, leading to potentially fatal outcomes. The American Heart Association warns that added sugar is particularly dangerous when it constitutes more than 10% of daily caloric intake, a threshold that many people far exceed simply by consuming processed snack foods and drinks. Another deeply troubling factor is the inflammatory potential of many additives and emulsifiers used in ultra-processed foods. Substances such as carrageenan, polysorbate 80, and artificial colorings have been linked in emerging research to disruption of the gut microbiome and low-grade systemic inflammation, both of which are implicated in the development of cardiovascular disease. While the full impact of these additives is still being studied, early evidence suggests they may exacerbate endothelial dysfunction, the impaired ability of blood vessels to dilate and regulate blood flow, which is a precursor to atherosclerosis and hypertension. The risk of cardiovascular disease from ultra-processed foods is not theoretical or distant. It is already manifesting in stark public health statistics. Heart disease remains the leading cause of death worldwide, and dietary factors are one of its most modifiable contributors. Large-scale studies, including those following participants for decades, have consistently found that higher consumption of ultra-processed foods is associated with a significantly greater risk of cardiovascular events and death. One such study, conducted in France with over 100,000 adults, found that every 10% increase in the proportion of ultra-processed foods in the diet was associated with a more than 10% increase in rates of cardiovascular disease. These findings remain robust even after adjusting for total calories, physical activity, and other lifestyle factors. Alarmingly, these risks are not confined to older adults. Young people consuming ultra-processed foods from an early age show early markers of cardiovascular dysfunction, such as arterial stiffness, insulin resistance, and elevated blood pressure. Given the aggressive marketing of these foods to children and adolescents, the future burden of heart disease may grow even more severe if interventions are not made early and decisively. In reality, the cardiovascular risks associated with ultra-processed food are rarely visible until significant damage has already occurred. Many people live for years with elevated blood pressure, worsening cholesterol profiles, and plaque buildup without overt symptoms, making these conditions especially dangerous. By the time a heart attack or stroke occurs, the opportunity for prevention has often passed. For this reason, widespread consumption of ultra-processed foods should be viewed not as a personal dietary misstep, but as a silent epidemic with profound implications for public health. Ultimately, the regular inclusion of ultra-processed foods in the diet undermines the heart's ability to function properly, increases the risk of life-threatening cardiovascular events, and erodes the health of blood vessels through a combination of poor nutritional content, toxic additives, and systemic inflammation. Unless urgent changes are made in food policy, public education, and industry regulation, the toll of cardiovascular disease will continue to climb, silently fueled by the very foods that line the shelves of grocery stores and dominate modern diets.